Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and another STAMPtember exclusive collaboration. Throughout the month of September, Simon Says Stamp partners with a ton of crafty brands to release limited edition exclusive sets that are one and done. When they sell out, they are not restocked. However, all the brands have wonderful product lines. I will have links like I always do. Today's collab is with Memory Box, one of my favorites. And for those that don't know, Memory Box actually designs a lot of the wafer dies in the Simon Says Stamp line. A lot of the wafer dies that are some of my absolute favorites that I do multiple videos on and I use over and over and over again are designed by Memory Box. So this set is super cute. I had a lot of fun with it. I did some alcohol marker coloring and then heat embossing over it, which I haven't done in a really long time, but the whole thing just kind of came together. I had loads of fun and pulled out all kinds of random products. So, as always, I'll have links to everything. I'll have a link to the collabs. I will have a link to the Memory Box product line, and then links to everything that I used to make these cards in the description box below the video. You just expand the description box, they'll all be there. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It is what helps pay the bills and keeps the channel going. And let's get into making these cards. Okay, so the stamp set is called So Very Merry. That is the collaboration set with Memory Box and Simon Says Stamp. And I chose two of the little characters from the set and lined up one of the images in my MISTI. And the thing to remember with this is wherever you've lined it up, you need to leave it there because we will be coming back to this and re-stamping after we're done coloring. So where I've got the paper, where I have the stamps is important. So I left that first stamp in place and then I just stuck another piece of white cardstock in my MISTI and stamped this little penguin. Of course I went with the snowman and the penguin, although there's a really cute little Santa image and then there's a little cluster of trees too. And as always, if I had more hours in the day, I would have made more cards, but this was maxed out. Anyway, so I stamped everything onto Simon Says Stamps smooth white 120 pound cardstock, and I used their intense black ink. Stamped pretty decently for the first round. Normally, I would probably maybe stamp it a second time. However, this is the stamping is going to get covered up, which you'll see in a minute. I used my Olo markers to color these in. I have sped this up in editing. It didn't take that long to color these because they're fairly small images, and I will link at the end of this video. I have a playlist of all the videos I've done using Olo markers. The first one in that playlist is when I unbox them and swatch them and talk about it. It was a live that I had done. So that'll be linked in the end screen. Olo markers are meant to be connected, like either two markers or you can have a brush tip, chisel tip, etc. I use them as half markers. I just call them my little stublets. That's just for now what's working for me. I will eventually connect them, but that's why they look funny, because I'm weird. So anyway, I kept the coloring simple, just, and I went with traditional colors again. I've lost my mind. Not surprising. I've put out a lot of content this month. I really am losing my mind. But went with traditional colors. It just worked. So when I was done coloring, I let these dry and actually blasted them with my heat tool to make sure they're dry. Alcohol markers do dry pretty quick, but you want to be safe with this. Then I used my anti-static powder tool on these images, and then I tested it by just pouring embossing powder over it to make sure it wasn't clinging to anything. We were good to go. Everything's dry. This is why I kept the stamps where they were, because we need to stamp directly on top of this. And this time, after applying the anti-static powder, I'm stamping the image with clear embossing ink. And then I'm going to coat it with embossing powder, and I'm going to use gold embossing powder. So if you love to color with alcohol markers and love the look of heat embossing, this is what I recommend. I do not recommend heat embossing and then coloring with alcohol markers. One, the color will sit on top of the heat embossing because that's just the nature of alcohol markers. And two, there is something in heat embossed images, in the embossing powder, that does not play nicely with alcohol markers. It starts to eat away at the marker tips. Now, if you didn't know that and you've done it in the past and your markers are fine, that's fine. I can't in good conscience recommend that. So this is how you get around that, is you stamp it, you color it, and then you can heat emboss over it. So I went with gold. Looks super, super cute. These images are just adorable. So after I'd poured on the embossing powder, melted that with my heat tool. So I've got my little images. And then I took a circle, just a nesting circle wafer die, and die cut these. The funny thing is I was inspired by, there's this random little stamp in this set that looks like an ornament topper. I'm not sure if that's even what it's supposed to be, but to me it looked like an ornament topper. And I was like, oh, these would look really cute as ornaments. And then it just went, my brain went from there. I didn't use the ornament topper stamp from the set because you wouldn't see it anyway, but that's what inspired me. So I was like, I'm going to make little ornaments with these characters. So after I die cut those circles, I took some strips of just red cardstock. And I'm going to stamp this pattern stamp from that same set onto it. So I use my anti-static powder tool on all of these strips of cardstock, and then I'm stamping this pattern with just clear embossing ink and coating them with the same gold embossing powder. And I'm going to do this all at once. So I'm going to, I used the anti-static powder tool on all 4 strips. I stamped all 4, coated each one with the embossing powder, and then set them aside until I was done stamping all 4 of them. And then once I've got the 4th one stamped, then I'm going to melt all of these just back to back with my heat tool. So just quick and easy. So tapped off the excess and then melted all of this with my heat tool. Always satisfying. I will never get tired of heat embossing, especially metallics, because you can just see it melt and it's like magic. More than 20 years now of me doing like card making and stuff, and it'll never get old. So after I melted all of that embossing powder, I used my microfiber cloth to remove that excess anti-static powder from all of these strips. And then I used my paper trimmer and trimmed down just one side of these. This will make sense in a minute. I just trimmed like right up to the very edge of this design. So once I've got these trimmed, I'm going to line these up on those circles, using the circle as a guide, and then die cut these strips with that circle wafer die. You could also just kind of adhere them on top and then like trim around the perimeter with your scissors. I thought about that and I was like, this is actually easier. Plus it gives a cleaner cut, because like I can fussy cut like the best of them, but cutting in keeping it smooth would have been annoying. So using the guide of the first die cut circle there and just taping the circle wafer die into place. That way I got these trimmed exactly how I needed, and then I could adhere them above and below these images on these circles to make them look more like ornaments. And another thing a person could do, I thought about it, and again, by the time I was done these, you guys, it's been a crazy month, but I would add like a little narrow strip of like gold glitter paper or matte gold, specialty paper, like just trim off like teeny little strip and add that right at the edge of these pieces of red cardstock. It just give it that finishing, that finishing ornament touch. That would look really good. But I ran out of time, so it's just an idea. So anyway, after I adhered those, I also pulled out, this is the Scandinavian Snowflake plate by Poppy Stamps, which is actually owned by Memory Box. It's just another, like, under their umbrella of, like, their own brand. And I bought this die plate last year. It's still available. I checked before I made these cards. And it's really pretty. It's really pretty. So I was glad to, like, when I was digging through my stash, I found it. And I was like, oh, yeah, I love this. Anyway, I die cut it from the same smooth white cardstock. And then I took just some gold cord, or like thicker thread, thicker than what I used the other day for the one card I made with the little thread nest. This is a little bit thicker, and I doubled it up and I taped it, and I placed the tape where it's getting covered here by the ornament, so it's going to look like it's hanging in place. So I taped that cord into place, and then I adhered the die cut circle with some of Simon's Big Mama foam tape. And then I die cut some green cardstock with the Simon Says Stamps long leaf pine sprig little wafer die. So I'd run that through and die cut the green cardstock with that. And then I'm just tucking this into like right above the ornament here. So just adding glue and just sticking them into place. No rhyme or reason, just sticking them in. It'll just add some, add some greenery, bring out that traditional color combo. For those that are new, welcome to the chaos. But for those that are new, I don't usually go with especially when it comes to Christmas cards. I don't go with traditional colors normally. And this month I've done so many, it's kind of just funny to me. I don't know. I like experimenting. But that said, there will be many videos coming using very non-traditional colors. So this is why I didn't do the ornament hanger. I wanted to add ribbon, and I didn't have ribbon in the color I wanted. So I took this is seam binding, and I'll have a link to it. And this is a trick that Tim Holtz showed in a video, I think it was last year, maybe the year before. But I've shown it in a couple videos, and it's just dyeing this ribbon with distress mica stain. Distress spray stain would work. Oxides, maybe. Oxides might be a little weird because of the pigments. They might like sit on the ribbon because they wouldn't like fully get absorbed, if that makes sense. The mica stains work even with the mica. The shimmer actually shows up. You can't really see it at all in the video, and I apologize, I didn't try with my flashlight to show it, but it does work. And this is all in real time. I didn't speed it up because this is so ridiculously easy, it's not even funny. So I've got my seam binding ribbon. I shook up, this is Flickering Candle Distress Mica Stain. I shook it up really well to, disperse all of that mica. I'm wearing gloves for this, which normally I do not care. I'll get inky, do all the things. I do not care. I'll have ink stained in my cuticles, all the things. It pretty much always comes off. I wash my hands so often, it doesn't matter. But this obviously gets a little mucky. And I wasn't in the mood because more often than not, I'm, doing 5 million things, and you just know I would get it even more everywhere. So I wore gloves for this, and I just sprayed the ribbon. And then I added a bit of water. You don't really need to, depending on the color you're going for. But I just did because I was like, we'll see. And I kept mine like really crumpled because I like this stuff to be very wrinkly, crinkly, So I'm just like mushing it. And my surface is glass. You want to work on a non-porous surface when you're doing this because, like, as you can see, it gets messy. But anything non-porous would work. And once I was happy with how it looked, you can let it air dry. I kind of think though that heat setting it will help just kind of seal everything in. So I would recommend heat setting it. I'm using my like Ranger Heat It tool. My embossing tool would work too. Just obviously be careful. You don't want to overheat it and like melt anything or burn anything. But I use my heat tool just to really seal it in, and then it's fine. It will not transfer. Like when I go to tie these in a bow, nothing comes off. When I add them to my cards, nothing comes off. So yeah. I dried it with my heat tool, and then I've got this like kind of gold color ribbon. Super fun. And because I wear gloves, my hands aren't like stained for the next, day or so. So once I had that, I am going to kind of thread that through that cord and then tie this in a bow. And that's it. Super simple. So got to fiddle with it a bit. It's a little bit of a fight to tie this because I'm like tying it to such a thin little cord, and this ribbon is very crinkly, but I just kind of fiddle with it till I'm happy with it, crinkle it up a little bit more, and then trim off the excess. Off camera, I ended up I just squeezed a bit of glue behind the knot of the ribbon to hold it in place so it doesn't slide on the card at all, and it just stays in place like at the very top of the ornament. So yeah, I just squeezed a little bit of my craft tacky glue behind the knot, and it was good to go. So then I put my card fronts into my splat box, and I'm using that Flickering Candle mica stain again. Make sure it's shaken up really well, and then I just open it up, put a little bit on my palette, and then I'm going to use my little fan brush to add splatter to these. Of course. Mostly avoiding the ornament. Some splatter is going to get on there. If I didn't want any splatter on the ornament, I would have just like die cut a scrap of cardstock with that same circle and just covered it, to protect it, to mask it off. But I didn't mind that splatter at all. So splattered those and then set those aside to dry, which dried quite quickly. My card bases are top folding A2 white note cards. And I'm going to stamp the little characters on the insides of the cards with Simon's Seafoam Positively Saturated ink. And then I took Concord and 9th Stardust ink. I've talked about this many times in videos. This is like my go-to ink for the closest to gold ink without getting a pigment ink out. I love gold pigment inks, but I am very impatient, and especially when I'm racing the clock, they take a while to dry. Even when they're heat set sometimes, they take a while to dry, and it just annoys me. So Concord 9th Stardust ink is like the closest to gold without getting into pigment inks. So I stamped the sentiment from one of the sentiments from that stamp set with that ink. And then I'm going to adhere my card fronts to the card bases, again using craft tacky glue. And with a big intricate wafer die like this Scandinavian snowflake plate, once I get it in place, I'm putting my big magnets to hold this down, like just to weigh everything down so that the glue can like be pressed in, and then just let the glue dry. So yeah, because my glass surface is also magnetic. And then once those were dry, for my sentiments for the front of the cards, I'm using these. These are greeting tabs by Memory Box. I ordered these last year. This specific pack is not available anymore. This was like the Merry Christmas pack. I'll link to, there was a holiday one they released, and I'll link to those. They're really cool. Online, they don't look like anything special. And I ordered them on a whim. And then when I got them, I was like, they're foiled and they're really thick. They're like little chipboard pieces. They're so cool. And so, of course, I've been hoarding them because I haven't done a video with them since I ordered them last year because I legit have hoarded them. So I pat myself on the back. I pulled 2 out and used them on these cards. Yay me. Anyway, adhered them into place with craft tacky glue. And then my final little embellishment is these Picket Fence Studios North Pole Gem Mix. I had to do it. I was like, you would see this on like an actual ornament. You know, the little details would be enhanced with like little rhinestones and things like that. So because there's little tiny ones in like the Picket Fence gem packs. So I just added little dots of glue to their little hats because they had all the little circles, and then just adhered those little gems to it. And I just love it. I love it. So adhered those and then added a few more, onto the card fronts just to finish it off as we do. So just dabs of craft tacky glue, stuck those little gems into place, just picking them up with my embellishment wand. And once those are adhered, these cards are complete. So I've got my little colored and gold heat embossed images with their little gemstone hats. And my crinkly ribbon. And I really love this Scandinavian snowflake plate. I can't believe it's taken me a year to use this thing. It is so fabulous. It's so fabulous. So, like I mentioned in the intro, I will have links to all the things in the description box below the video. So you can check that out below if you are interested. Just expand it. Everything will be there for your convenience. As always, thank you all so very much for taking the time to hang out with me today, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps a ton. Just tells the robot overlords you like what you see, and maybe the algorithms will somewhat listen, and I very much appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in supporting me over on Patreon, the link to that is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye.